Canada's recent actions have sent shockwaves through North America, leaving the Trump administration scrambling to reassess its long-standing energy policies. For decades, the United States has depended heavily on Canadian oil. Over 60% of its crude imports have come from its northern neighbor. This deeply entrenched energy partnership has now been thrown into jeopardy by escalating trade disputes and mounting political tensions. The current crisis is not merely a fleeting policy disagreement. It is a fundamental challenge to the economic and strategic foundations of American energy security. At the center of this unfolding drama is the imposition of hefty tariffs by the United States on Canadian oil exports. These tariffs, set at around 10%, were introduced under the guise of protecting American industry. However, what many have come to see as an economic rebuke, these tariffs have disrupted the decades-long relationship between the two nations. American refineries, which have built their operations around processing Canada's heavy crude, now find themselves facing significantly higher operational costs. This tariff, rather than serving as a protective measure, has become an economic slap in the face, forcing Canada to rethink its primary export strategy. Canadian policymakers, noticing the diminishing profitability of exporting oil to a market that is increasingly hostile, have been driven to consider more drastic measures. In a bold and unprecedented move, Canada has now signaled that it may cut off oil exports entirely if the United States does not roll back these tariffs. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has made it clear that the current tariff policy is unacceptable, hinting at the possibility of leveraging Canada's considerable oil infrastructure to redirect exports to alternative markets. Countries such as China and India, already eyeing Canada's oil as a viable alternative, stand ready to step in if the U.S. supply is curtailed. This strategic pivot could have profound implications for American refineries, which are uniquely configured to process the heavy crude supplied by Canada. Should Canada execute an export cutoff, the United States would be forced to turn to more volatile sources of crude oil, such as those from OPEC members or even Venezuela, options that carry inherent risks and uncertainties. The potential shift away from Canadian oil could trigger a domino effect, destabilizing the U.S. energy market and setting off a chain reaction that might lead to an energy crisis of unprecedented scale. The repercussions of Canada's potential oil cutoff extend far beyond the confines of refinery operations. One of the most immediate and palpable effects would be a sharp spike in domestic gasoline prices. Estimates suggest that, in the absence of Canadian oil, gas prices in the United States could soar past $7 per gallon, with some regions potentially experiencing even higher prices. Such a dramatic rise in fuel costs would have cascading effects across the economy. The trucking industry, which is the lifeblood of American logistics, would be hit hard by soaring diesel prices, resulting in increased transportation costs for a wide array of goods, from groceries to electronics. Air travel, too, would not be immune. Airlines dependent on jet fuel could be forced to raise ticket prices, thereby affecting both business travel and leisure trips. The resultant inflation, driven by escalating production and transportation costs, would threaten to undermine the economic stability of not just the United States, but of global markets interconnected by complex supply chains. A further complicating factor is the inherent limitation of the United States' ability to quickly compensate for a loss of Canadian oil. While some policymakers might argue that ramping up domestic oil production could offset the shortfall, the reality is far more complicated. Much of the U.S. oil production consists of light crude, which is not a suitable substitute for the heavy crude that American refineries are specifically designed to process. Retooling refineries to handle different types of crude is not a matter of simple adjustments. It would require years of investment, extensive infrastructure changes, and billions of dollars in expenditure. Additionally, U.S. oil production is already operating near its maximum capacity, meaning that even a concerted effort to increase output would fall short of bridging the gap created by a Canadian supply cutoff. Alternative sources, such as oil from OPEC countries or Venezuela, present their own set of challenges, including issues of supply instability and political unpredictability, making them unreliable options for a nation in need of immediate energy security. Compounding the severity of the situation is the state of the United States Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR. Originally established as a safeguard against energy disruptions, the SPR has steadily dwindled over the years. Once holding as much as 727 million barrels in 2009, the reserve has now dropped to approximately 390 million barrels, the lowest level in more than 4 decades. This depletion has been accelerated by emergency releases during previous energy crises, most notably in 2022 when 180 million barrels were released to counter soaring fuel prices. Efforts to replenish the SPR have been sluggish, leaving the United States dangerously exposed to any further supply shocks. A complete cutoff of Canadian oil would only exacerbate this vulnerability, potentially driving energy costs even higher and destabilizing the national economy at a time when the reserve should serve as a critical buffer against crisis. The ripple effects of this crisis are not confined to North America. They have the potential to trigger significant global repercussions. As Canada considers redirecting its oil exports, the resulting tightening of global oil supplies would almost certainly lead to increased prices on the international market. Major economies such as China and India, which are already active players in the global energy arena, would be compelled to reassess their energy strategies in response to these shifts. Financial markets, ever sensitive to geopolitical instability, would likely react with heightened volatility, driving oil futures to unprecedented levels and impacting economic stability worldwide. In this interconnected global economy, even a localized disruption in oil supply can set off a chain reaction, leading to widespread economic and geopolitical shifts. The political fallout from this crisis is as significant as the economic ramifications. With an election year looming in the United States, the current standoff has quickly become a contentious political issue. American lawmakers find themselves divided over the appropriate response to the tariffs and the subsequent threat of a Canadian oil cutoff. Some advocate for immediate tariff rollbacks as a means to preserve the vital energy partnership, while others insist that the U.S. must stand firm to protect its domestic industries, even if doing so means facing severe economic pain in the short term. On the Canadian side, the threat of an oil export cutoff is not taken lightly. Such a drastic measure would mark a significant departure from decades of stable trade relations and could redefine the energy dynamics between the two nations for years to come. The unfolding situation is a stark reminder of how deeply intertwined economic policy and political strategy have become in the modern era. As both nations navigate this high-stakes energy standoff, the road ahead remains uncertain. Canada's bold move has forced the United States to confront a fundamental question. Will it be willing to compromise and negotiate in order to preserve its critical energy supply, or will it insist on maintaining its current tariff policies at the risk of triggering an unprecedented energy crisis? The decisions made in the coming months will not only determine the future of U.S.-Canada energy relations, but could also set a precedent for how trade disputes are managed in an increasingly volatile global economy. In the end, the current crisis is a vivid illustration of how rapidly political tensions and economic policies can converge to reshape entire industries. The traditional energy partnership between the United States and Canada, once seen as a cornerstone of North American stability, now hangs in the balance. With gas prices on the rise, strategic reserves at dangerously low levels, and political leaders on both sides of the border facing immense pressure, the stakes have never been higher. As this high-stakes drama continues to unfold, it remains to be seen whether compromise can be achieved, or if this will mark the beginning of a new era of trade warfare with far-reaching consequences for the global energy market. This analysis serves as a call to action for policymakers, industry leaders, and concerned citizens alike. The decisions made now will reverberate through the economy for years to come, affecting everything from the price at the pump to the stability of global markets. It is a stark reminder that in today's interconnected world, even a single policy shift can have cascading effects that extend far beyond national borders. The future of energy security in North America, and indeed around the world, depends on how these challenges are addressed in the months ahead. Thank you for watching this in-depth analysis of one of the most critical energy crises of our time. We invite you to share your thoughts and insights in the comments below, and if you found this discussion valuable, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Stay tuned for more updates.